fellow deep thinkers, welcome to Deeper Meaning Time. Today is a Thinker Series episode 13 to be exact. And today I wanted to touch base on something that I've been researching. I researched it over the weekend, and it turns out that I can actually kind of tie two previous episodes into this episode based on one thing that I was researching. And so what I was researching was basically the Akashic Field. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of that. Again, the Akashic Record. I saw it mostly as the Akashic Field, which basically is this field that, and this is sort of pseudoscience. It's not necessarily something that physicists or scientists really study or talk about. Whether or not it's even really true, I don't know. And it's going to require all of us minds and to sort of dive into it. And if more people researched it, it seems like there really isn't a lot of research to back this, but of all the information I found, it was just interesting, and I was able to sort of tie it all together with some of my past episodes. So the Akashic Field is basically, and you'll probably immediately start seeing the connected, I just said it, you'll start seeing the connection to basically the last episode, which was about being connected in all of our minds and how they're connected. And this ties to remote viewing, and it also ties to predeterminism. And so the basis of the Akashic Field is that your information is there. Everything that you think, everything you see, everything I think, everything I see, and even not just humans, human thought, or it holds all information of particles, holds the information of past, of future, of present, and it's basically just the electromagnetic field, or it could be a lot of different things. I saw some things saying that some people think it's the Higgs field, some people think it's a 0-point field. I think it's probably just quantum electromagnetic waves, and we're just kind of, we of course are being bombarded constantly with these, and so it's, in my opinion, that basically the Akashic Field would be a propagation or a consequence of the electromagnetic field, or the electromagnetic waves, basically the whole spectrum, really, and in my own thought, the entire electromagnetic spectrum would hold different types of information because of the different wavelengths. And so whatever wavelength it is that your brain is able to either resonate with, so either your brain waves are sort of the same frequency as whatever the spectrum of the electromagnetic wave you would be within. And so your mind would be, then you would be tied, you'd be resonating, so you'd be able to receive information back and forth. But perhaps sometimes our brains aren't on the same wavelength, and maybe that's the big issue with why we don't have enough research on it, and we don't have any real ground on it, is because there's not thoughts about it, of course, but there's not necessarily a perfect way to prove it. There isn't you can't prove it. Maybe we could, again, with a bunch of research and stuff, but the thing that I find crazy about it, and this is what is sort of hard to believe, is that people think, some like psychologist type folks and different scientists, they think that the reason that like people like Einstein and inventors like Edison, or, well, I'm not even going to call Edison an inventor, that's a whole nother episode, but people that have invented things, Tesla to Alexander Graham Bell, anybody that has kind of invented something, they think that they were able to pull the invention and the idea of the invention through this field, through the Akashic Field, Um, and even things like like Einstein and his theory of general relativity, which I didn't even know this, but it turns out, I guess, that he actually wrote his whole theory. He wrote in one day, and that is crazy. I didn't even realize that was a real a thing. I didn't know that. I figured it took him a lot longer to get that done. And so they think too that he was pulling his theory out of this field, and that either, and so it seems to me that, and they like they like to say that it's kind of an alien, an extraterrestrial kind of help that we receive through this field, that all the inventions and the discoveries and the breakthroughs and the thoughts and everything that happens, it's all an agenda, and it's all being pushed by extraterrestrials. I don't really think so. In my opinion, what I think it is the electromagnetic field. And basically, we need to consider how many people are on the earth. How many people have been on this earth. There's always going to be lots of people, and there always has been lots of people. And so to me, it's a collective, this Akashic field. It's really just a collective mind. It's not, in my opinion, it's not future, past, and present, all in this one field. It's just now. It's just present. Or in my opinion, it's the future. I don't really think now is necessarily a thing. Present isn't really a thing. We're never sitting in the present. We're always in the future, moving towards the future. And so with that, it seems to me that there isn't necessarily, this information isn't there. It's not there in its full, it's everybody's collective effort and their individual pieces of information that are all floating out there. And then some people like inventors, people like Einstein, they have an innate ability to just receive. They sort of can, their brain is just a natural receiver. They don't it's already tuned to that wavelength that is best for this field, for pulling in this information that they wouldn't know about before. And it is interesting that to think of your brain as a receiver, because it is, and everything's radiating around us, from light to radio waves to electromagnetic waves. And everywhere there's radiation constantly. We're constantly being bombarded by it, and our brains are always picking it up. And so when you're, and even when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're talking with them, your brain is sort of being a receiver of their emotions and of their actions, as you watch their hand gestures and their mannerisms. That it's all being kind of, yes, you're seeing it, and so you're able to process it in your brain, but at the same time, it's your brain literally, seeing and thinking and being able to sort of, I'm not necessarily sure that that's the case, but it's just sort of receiving a signal, just a constant, signal of information through your eyes, I guess it would be. But anyway, that's besides the point, because that really wasn't even that great of an example. But the back to the receiving of the brain. So Richard Feynman, who I brought up in a previous episode, he did groundbreaking work in quantum electrodynamics. And if you're into that, he wrote a book called The Strange Theory of Light and Matter, and it's it's definitely a telling tale, a telling story of how life kind of actually is, what reality is. And so he says, not necessarily in this book, but he's talked about it in different lectures and things like that the electrons in your brain are being the reason that they're energized is because of the quantum electromagnetic waves. And so if those waves are affecting our brains and they're firing up these electrons within our brains that are then that are entangled, with other electrons in our brains, and so there's information's kind of being spread all over the place in our mind, and so he believed that these electromagnetic waves would affect your thoughts and they would affect your subconscious, and this has all to do with the fact that that these particles are entangled, that they're stuck together, that one is one and one is the opposite of the other, but they're still conjoined, and it doesn't matter the distance or anything. So they would definitely be affecting your brain then, the way you would think. So the way that you would stand in front of somebody and you would conversate with them, if your brain's truly receiving signals, it could be receiving signals that your eyes aren't picking up, things like emotion, that you're not consciously recognizing, but in your mind, you're the electromagnetic waves of the other person reaching your brain as the receiver, and then it's receiving the fact that you're upset, and maybe you didn't see it on their face, maybe you're, and that has to kind of gets into a psychic aspect of things, which is an interesting topic, and I suppose we'll get into that in the future. But it could be, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. The waves of one person are coming from another person, and whether you see their reaction or their emotion or not, you could still be receiving something from this other person, and so that in itself is just crazy. That's pretty mind blowing, and if that is definitely a possibility, then why I want to tap into all this. I want to be able to, whenever I'm talking to someone, to feel their actual emotions. Some people are really fake. They are in front of you and they're just lying, and or they're just faking their emotions, or they're just sort of acting because they're trying to hide something, or who knows, anything. But the fact would be that you would be able to feel and to understand their frequency that they'd be sending out, and you would be able to pick it up, and you'd kind of be like a mentalist, I guess, if you were able to do that. But so they think that, these people that have researched the Akashic Field and stuff like that, they're under the impression that anybody can tap into this, that anybody would be capable of tapping into this, that you could you could sit there and meditate. And I want to say that meditating is probably one of the best ways that anyone would be able to tap into this knowledge base, or whatever, this field that contains all this information. You'd have to sit down and you'd have to meditate, and you'd have to really focus. And so perhaps the thing to do to sort of test this is to use sensory deprivation tanks, and go try it out and see if maybe you taking time to let your mind just go at ease and let things happen and let things come into your mind, that maybe it is true. Maybe there are ways we can test this. But it's going to require a bunch of people to talk about it first. That's what we're here for. So if we're all going to be able to eventually tap into this, and if we all pushed towards being able to do this, then that kind of leads into my last episode, which was how connected we are and how connected we are becoming. We're becoming extremely connected, especially with the cloud. And the cloud is almost basically a real version of the internet, everything that is contained within the internet. It's all kind of the Akashic Field for reality, I guess. We all go to the internet, to Google search engine, and we all search things and we all find answers. And the research I did on this, I found through the internet. All the information was there. And so we're already kind of on a path towards doing that. So maybe in the future, hundreds of years from now, instead of there being an internet, we'll all just kind of be globally connected. Everybody across the globe. We won't even need to share information. We'll just pull it from each other's brains. I don't know, so I guess we'll have to see. But it is pretty interesting to see how we are kind of creating our own field, our own place of information. So, maybe that's just the natural way of us obtaining the Akashic Field, the thing that we can't obtain naturally, that we have to. Maybe we did obtain it naturally. Maybe that's what our ancestors did by spending lots of time in sort of communities where they all just shared knowledge and just and sort of discovered things, especially back in like ancient Greece, where we had the greatest philosophers of our time coming up with some absolutely mind-blowing theories of nature and of reality. And so maybe they were already kind of setting the base and the foundation for what we were going to do in the future, which was create this internet, this thing where we contain all of our information. So we don't no longer do we need to discuss things. No longer do we need to talk about things and share our knowledge. We can all do it in this virtual world. But there are problems, and I've spoken of the problems of this connectedness and everybody being on the internet and all the information being on the internet. It leads to misinformation and confusion. All kinds of things. So you have to source your information properly if we're going to be using the internet as a way to contain all of our information. But so I can tie it in with our connected world, and that in itself is really interesting, which kind of leads me to the fact that maybe I am kind of onto something. I don't know, but it's weird that all these things tie together. And so I always, whenever things tie together in coincidences or whatever you want to call it, I always find them very meaningful and intriguing. Just the fact that I need to think about possibly what the what actually is occurring. Are these things sort of tied together? Are they leading me somewhere? And stuff like that. But so I could tie it with the connected world, but I can also tie this with remote viewing, which is totally crazy. But think about it. So if remote viewers claim that they're tapping into a field of information in order to go places, to see things, to hear things, they must be tapping into the field. So, and perhaps with more research on remote viewing and more experimentation and things of that nature, maybe the field is very real. The Akashic Field, the Akashic Record, all the information that we all think and see and say and do, it's all there. And remote viewers are some of the best at tapping into it. But they're not quite tapping into it the way people in the past have, such as inventors and scientists and philosophers, people like that. So if you're able to do it with remote viewing, maybe we need to really consider the fact that it's definitely real. And something that I thought was interesting is how we have this saying that, oh, it's the thought in the back of my mind, or I'm gonna lock that into the back of my mind, or push that to the back of your mind. We're always talking about the back of our mind and what's back there. What is back there in the back of our mind? Well, it turns out that like during normal waking state, when you're just conscious and active and doing your day-to-day stuff, most of the brain activity is in your frontal lobe. But I'm not even sure what that's called. The posterior, of your brain, the back of your head, the back of your brain. It actually isn't really used that much during your just conscious, active life. But when you're sleeping or when you're meditating, you're actually in the back of your brain. And the back of your brain is firing and all kinds of different things are happening back there. So if when someone's saying, oh, I had a crazy thought in the back of my mind. Whoa, what if that crazy thought in the back of your mind was just a thought that popped in through this field? And that maybe the electromagnetic waves, they ran into your brain, into the back of your brain, and sort of planted a thought, planted an idea, or planted a message or information. Because really the way that a lot of people kind of look at the universe and the world and life is that it's numbers. It's all numbers, it's all code even. So perhaps just the frequency that runs, that you're resonating with your brain and everything, it's dropping off just numbers, and then in your brain these numbers are being compiled together into words, into information. So perhaps the field isn't really information. Perhaps the field is just numbers, and it's just a code, and that is something that we have to not look at. When let's say we meditate, say we're all group meditating, and you can't sit there and meditate and think, oh, I'm gonna pull information. I'm gonna pull information. No, I don't think that's quite how it works. I think how it would work would be that the information would just get deposited once you're resonating at that perfect frequency. Boom, the information would just drop in, and your brain would put it together. There is no need to try to gain it. I think it's already, it just happens automatically, and that makes a lot of sense, anyways, because of the electrons in our brain, and so this all leads to my predeterminism episode, and I kind of have, not necessarily, but the interesting thing about Feynman is that he talked about the electrons in our brain and how they receive signals and stuff like that. But he believed that the signals that we were receiving, they are from the past and they're from the future at the same time, because that's how quantum entanglement sort of works. Is that we're quantum entanglement is saying that two particles are paired together in the same state and with the same energy, but basically the other particle is just opposite of in when it comes to spin and different things like that. But the fact is, and this is what is important and what is interesting, is that if the electrons, if he's thinking, and I agree with him, if the electrons in our brains are receiving both a past and a future signal, and it's compiling them together in our brains to create our present reality, then why wouldn't predeterminism absolutely be true? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to scare people or to make people believe that this is the way it is. I don't know. I have no idea, but we need to talk about it. Because it could be, it absolutely could be. That is the crazy thing, though, that if the particles in our brain are picking up both a past and a future signal from this field, the electromagnetic field, the Akashic Field, whatever. If they're picking up that and it is both past and present, and it's compiling together into our brain to create one moment, which is what we see and what we visually live in, the present, then if we're receiving a future signal, then yeah, absolutely predeterminism would be real. I can't see how it wouldn't be. And if we're also receiving it from the past, does that cancel out the fact that it came from the future? Are these just canceling out each other so that our present reality is present? There is no future past? You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. It's interesting, to say the least. And it's interesting the fact that I was able to just do a little bit of research and reading and watching a couple different things to piece this all together. Perhaps the electromagnetic waves perhaps my brain's receiving all this, receiving the fact that it's tied all this together, receiving the fact that all these things have happened, and it's all kind of swirling and coming together nicely, you know what I mean? So maybe maybe it is. Maybe the only reason we live is because of this field. The only reason that we are conscious and moving is because this field is energized with our consciousness. You know what I mean? So I don't know. These thoughts are crazy. These thoughts may be untrue. These thoughts may be anything. So the point is that you just think about it. What if? What if our connected world is so connected, and it's connected on this fundamental level that we all just don't realize, but it's been there ever since. And so why don't we research into it? Why aren't more of us more interested? Why isn't it a thing? Why are we just sitting around being treated like a bunch of animals still? Why, our people, our brains are so capable of so much. And guys, that's the point for Deeper Meaning Time, is to explain to you that we are, and I'm not even that, I'm not like I wasn't a great student in school. I haven't pushed myself towards academia. I've just pushed myself towards learning things in general. So I can't even say that I have credentials to be talking about this stuff, or that I even have correct answers, or my opinions are even right, or I'm not even telling you to listen to me. I'm just telling you my own thoughts, so that you can come up with your own thoughts, so that maybe we can all collectively, through the field or without the field, we can come up with our own understandings that will lead us forward. The thing that, and this really, really drives me crazy. Every physicist on anywhere, it doesn't matter who. I've read so many books, and at the end of every book, this drives me insane. At the end of every book, everybody always says, there needs to be new information. We have no new information. That basically all the research and science and everything they're doing has come to a complete standstill. But what I see is an issue with the science itself, and the fact that not enough of us are a part of it. Not enough of us are contributing to science. Of course there is no new ideas. Of course there's no new information. You're also all science. They're all so biased and opinionated. I mean, I am biased and opinionated in my own thoughts. But the fact is that I want to learn, and I want other people to learn, and I want us all to understand. We all deserve to understand, because we are all real and we are all human. I mean, the essence of our reality should be known. We exist. So we all should work collectively towards figuring this out. It seems, in my opinion, that would be the best case scenario. But science is so biased, and they don't let in new thoughts. They don't let in new ideas. That's what I don't understand, is that all these physicists and scientists, they all say, oh, we need new this, we need new that. Now, people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, you read his book, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. It's a fantastic book, by the way. But he even says in there multiple times, oh, we don't have any new information on this. Oh, maybe one day there'll be someone that'll come around like Einstein. Oh, maybe one day. No, there's not going to be a day, because none of you believe that there could be an Einstein. Everybody's so stuck in their ways of them being Einstein or them winning. Everything nowadays has to do with fame and fortune. And why if someone came up to a physicist with a solid paper with all the formulas, with all the math, with everything laid out in front of them, and they took a look at it and they just didn't like it, they'd say, no, that ain't right. And that guy may go on to die and never have his paper, had never been published, never went anywhere, but turned out he was Einstein. He was the new Einstein. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there isn't a give and take in the science community or in any type of research community, even psychology. People believe that the Akashic Field, that the informational field that we all possibly pull from, so people believe it's not even real. I mean, that doesn't add up to me. We're missing something, and what we're missing is discussion. What we're missing is the fact that people don't talk. We don't discuss our ideas. We don't discuss our values or things that matter to us. That doesn't make sense. Why? Why don't we? So, but that, guys, that's the point here with Deeper Meaning Time. And I wasn't trying to make this episode run long or anything today. I just wanted to point out that I was able to, over the weekend, construct an idea that came, that brought everything together. Of 3 or 4 episodes, really, that all came together because of one idea. and that is this Akashic Field. And I highly suggest people look into it. I highly suggest if you're interested, you look into it, because what if we were all capable of just letting this information come in? What if we were all Einsteins? What if we were all Newtons? What if we were all Neil deGrasse Tysons? Michio Kaku's? What if we were all these scientists? We could all contribute. We could all be contributors. But we all have to learn, and we all have to think, and we all have to be free with our opinions, and we have to be unbiased. It's going to take a while. But it starts now, guys. And in my opinion, it starts here on Deeper Meaning Time. Getting people to open up their minds to more and to understand that there's more there. There's more around us. We are all capable of knowing more and receiving more with our receivers. It's so intriguing and interesting. I mean, guys, we're living a life that is a 1 in a million chance of happening. I don't even think this statistic isn't even right. But the fact of the matter is that we're here, and this is real. So let's make use of it, shall we? So guys, I'm just going to leave it there today, and I'll be back soon with another Thinker episode, another full-length episode here to come. So guys, you know the motto. My name's Evan. Thanks for listening.